Hi guys, thank you for clicking on this video. I had to make a video about the Democrats' latest lie, blaming the defunding of police on Republicans.
Part of his announcement is also ensuring there's specific guidance to communities across the country to ensure that they have funding to get more community police around the country, something that was supported by the American Jobs Plan that was voted into law by Democrats just a couple of months ago. Some might say that the other party was for defunding the police.
Okay, so we know that's a lie, right? We know it was the Democrats that wanted to defund the police. It's never been the Republicans. I know you've probably seen the montage of the Democrats saying that. This is a small sample of what I put together.
When people ask me, what does a world where we defund the police, where, defunding police looks like, I tell them it looks like a suburb.
Are you for defunding the police, and what does that mean to you?
I am for defunding the police, and for me, it's a reallocation of funds.
Many affluent suburbs have essentially already begun pursuing a defunding of the police.
Not only do we need to defund, but we need to dismantle and start anew, allows us to really reimagine what public safety should look like in our community. The police department here in Minneapolis needs to be dismantled, and we need to start anew.
I'm actively engaged in advocacy for is the reduction of really truly talking about the reduction of our NYPD budget and defunding a $6 billion NYPD budget.
Yes, I support the defund movement because this is about the investment in our communities, which have historically been divested.
So that last person you saw was Ayanna Pressley. She and fellow Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib introduced a bill called the Breathe Act.
First to the Breathe Act guy, I want to dig into this proposal here. It's wide-ranging. Everybody should take a second to look at the details of it. But here's some of the highlights. Defunding prisons and police departments, dismantling ICE and CBP, grant all ex-convicts voting rights, reparations for victims of police violence. This proposal was unveiled by two members of the so-called squad. Rashida Tlaib used the words for this proposal to call it a new vision of public safety.
It's actually worse than that. I read through the bill and I highlighted some of the things I thought you'd be interested in. Remember, two people in Congress proposed this bill. They want to eliminate SWAT raids. They want to eliminate consent searches. So if a cop asks you, do you mind if I look in your bag? Even though you consent to that, they don't want the cop to be allowed to even ask. They want to eliminate canine when it comes to their ability to sniff out drugs. Normally that gives us probable cause. They want to eliminate that. They want to eliminate the watch list for terrorism. They want to eliminate tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and it says any other less than lethal forms of crowd control. There used to be people complaining that the only option a cop had was to use his firearm. So they gave us the tools to be able to subdue people without killing them, which was a good thing, right? Tasers, mace, they don't like that. They don't want that. Facial recognition technologies. I know we've come a long way with the software. They don't want that either. Tasers, they don't want you to use tasers even on patrol. Aerial surveillance, looking at people from above, including drones, they don't want that. And body cameras. They don't want cops to wear body cameras, which I thought was insane because they were complaining that cops need to be held accountable. And by the way, it protects us too. But they don't want that anymore. They want to eliminate the law banning material support for terrorism. It is currently illegal to support ISIS or to provide them with the means to conduct a terrorist act. They want to eliminate that law. They want you to support terrorists. And any gang-related offense. They want to eliminate that. Two people in Congress are supporting a bill to eliminate that. Wait, it gets worse. Asset forfeiture. If a person is driving around 8-year-old girls and pimping them out for sex, when he's collared, we take that car. These Democrats want the pimp to keep his car, okay? They don't want any more assets to be forfeited to the DOJ, to Customs and Border Patrol, to ICE, or local police departments. They want to do away with asset forfeiture. Expunge all of the records and all of the database of any known gang members or terrorists. when it comes to sentencing. First, abolish all mandatory minimums. You knew that was coming. Raise the age to be tried as an adult. In most states, it's 18. Cuomo just raised it from 16 to 18. I'm going to do a video about that where it ended up getting a lot of people killed by letting these people out on jail. But this bill raises it to 24. So if you commit a crime and you're 23 and under, I guess you treat it as a juvenile. All right? End life sentences and end life, de facto life sentences. So if a person is 50 years old and he gets sentenced to 50 years, that essentially is a life sentence. They don't want that. Okay? I don't know how many years you need to let him out before his life expectancy is over, but they don't want that. And look at the last line. Make it retroactive. So the vile scum that are in prison right now that are serving a life sentence or sometimes 2 life sentences, like the judge will give a life sentence plus 150 years, which never made sense to me. But those life sentences now are going to be done away with, and that person gets released, right? 2 Democrats, Congress people want this. They're going to establish a war on drugs by ending the war on drugs, and they're going to form a rulemaking committee. Here's the catch. It's going to be composed of 12 members, and 6 of those members have to be on drugs. It says it right here. It should be composed of 12 members, not fewer than 50% must be people who use drugs. This is the only time in our history where you need to be an addict to get on a federal committee. And at least 6 of these people must also be infected with HIV or hepatitis B and C. Again, these are requirements before you can get allowed to serve on this panel. You have to be an addict, and you have to have an infectious disease. I saved this the best for last. Look what they want to decriminalize. We have a lot of laws fighting online sex trafficking, and the Democrats want to get away with it. They want to do away with that law. These are laws on the books right now. Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, and the Mann Act, which is also a sex trafficking group of laws. The Democrats want to get away with it. They want to do away with it. All right, so that's in the Breathe Act. As far as defunding the police goes, let's go back. We heard from all those other idiots. It even made its way to Sloppy Joe.
The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is
but
that...
do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. We can redirect some of the funds. So don't tell me that he's not for defunding the police. By the way, we're not talking about adding more money and refraining from doing that to police budgets. We're talking about money that's already been allocated will now be taken away and redirected, as he says, to other areas. But it's, he's not alone. The other race baiter in the White House, Kamala Harris, she says the same thing.
In many cities in America, over 1/3 of their city budget goes to police. So we have to have this conversation.
The status quo way of thinking about achieving safety is really wrong when it assumes that the best way to achieve more safety is to put more police on the streets.
I think that a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America, which I support.
We've got to re-examine what we're doing with American taxpayer dollars and ask the question, are we getting the right return on our investment? Are we actually creating healthy and safe communities? And that's a legitimate conversation, and it requires a really critical evaluation. I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
What do you think Eric Garcetti did? Remember, Kamala Harris is proud of him. So what do you think he did in the wake of all these riots?
In the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti looks out across the worst rioting in the nation's second largest city in a generation, in almost 30 years. His conclusion? We need far fewer police. It could have been better if they hadn't been there. Garcetti has announced he's going to cut funding for law enforcement.
I want you to know we will not be increasing our police budget. Our city, through our city administrative officer, identified $250 million in cuts.
He's proud of that. He cut $250 million from the LAPD budget. Okay. Now let's go to other Democrat mayors, not Republican, Democrat mayors who are also tickled about cutting funding to police. We'll start with the idiot Ted Wheeler in Portland.
A new era for Portland's police bureau. The mayor unveiled several changes after demonstrators demanded reform.
Well, there have been mounting demands for the city to defund the police bureau, and today the mayor said he is taking steps in that direction.
We propose to redirect over $7 million from the police bureau. We're going to dissolve the gun violence reduction team, the school resource officer program, and the transit specialty units.
They're going to dissolve the gun violence program. Is that not insane? We'll go to San Francisco, listen to the Democrat mayor, London Breed.
San Francisco Mayor London Breed wants to give a part of the police budget to black communities in the city.
Yeah, London Breed wants to take $120 million away from the city's law enforcement budget as a form of reparations toward the black community.
For those who truly believe that black lives matter, it's important that we listen to black voices.
You can't talk about insane liberal mayors without mentioning Bill de Blasio. Here's another Democrat mayor.
Just last night, an infant was shot to death while sleeping in a stroller at a cookout in Brooklyn. Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's almost single-handedly destroyed that city, described the child's murder as so painful. Then de Blasio moved forward with his plans to disable the NYPD. He canceled the hiring of more than 1,000 cops. He announced that police will no longer keep the schools safe.
Now, when it wasn't crazy Democrat mayors, it was the crazy Democrats on the city council. First, we'll go to Oakland.
In Oakland tonight, defunding the police has become a reality. Hours ago, the council voted to take more than $18 million away from the police department to invest in violence prevention programs.
We are showing that we can not only reimagine, we can take action.
City Council President Nikki Fortunato-Boss was instrumental in passing Oakland's new budget.
Oakland City Council, right? Every one of these people are Democrats. Every one of them voted to defund the police. Not Republicans, Democrats. Let's go to Minneapolis. I don't know if you heard of the psychotic liberal Lisa Bender. She's the president of the Minneapolis City Council.
Yeah, and a lot of us were asked if we could imagine a future without police back in 2017 when we were running for office. And I answered yes to that question.
Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it.
Here's the Minneapolis City Council. Every one of these people, every one of these Democrats voted to defund their police. In fact, they also voted to dismantle the police. Okay? All Democrats. Let's go to Seattle.
The Seattle City Council approved a plan to cut money and jobs from the police department, calling it a starting point. The council made cuts to the Mounted Patrol, school resource officers, the navigation team, Harbor Patrol, public affairs, and the SWAT team. It adds up to a loss of 100 officers, 7% of SPD's sworn force, totaling $2.9 million in savings. There are also cuts to training and recruitment programs.
This is the City Council of Seattle. Every one of these people are Democrats. Every one of them. All of them voted to defund the police and dismantle their police department, except this one. Shauna Sawant. Do you know why she voted no? You know why this Democrat voted no to defund the police? Because she didn't think the cuts went far enough. She wanted more cuts. Okay? By the way, no Republicans, all Democrats.
In New York, 48 separate Democratic candidates, and we're including in that the Manhattan District Attorney, signed a letter demanding a $1 billion cut to the budget of the NYPD.
Breaking overnight, the City Council passed the New York City budget, which includes redistributing $1 billion from the NYPD budget. Protesters calling to defund the police are remaining camped out in City Hall Park. That's after the mayor agreed to cut the department's funding and put that money into other social and youth services. Some believe the cuts do not go far enough.
Who do you think is complaining that those cuts didn't go far enough? I'll give you a guess. Come on, you know who it is.
Last night's vote by New York City Council to cut $1 billion out of the $6 billion police budget wasn't enough for Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She sent out a message that reads in part, quote, defunding police means defunding police. It does not mean budget tricks or funny math. This is not a victory. The fight to defund policing continues.
The fight to defund policing continues. Don't tell me it's Republicans asking for this. Other Democrats also got involved. You remember Brian Fallon?
Brian Fallon, who was the press secretary of the Hillary Clinton for President campaign in the last election cycle, tweeted, quote, defund the police. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib agrees.
Rashida Tlaib agreed with that, but she not only wants to defund the police, Tlaib also wants to completely defund ICE, immigration, Customs and Border Patrol, and Homeland Security.
Look, the simple answer to that question is we must eliminate funding for CPB, ICE, and their parent organization, DHS.
Not only does she want to take the funding away, but she wants to completely eliminate police. Here's a tweet she put out after the Dante Wright shooting. No more policing, incarceration, or militarization. No more cops, no more prisons, no more military. It can't be reformed. Again, she's in Congress, wants to completely abolish police. Maybe that's why she gets along so well with Omar.
I will never stop saying not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
Okay, so stop saying it's Republicans. It was obviously the Democrats. But it's not just Jen Psaki. Here's Cedric Richmond. He's the senior advisor to Biden. Here he is on Fox News talking to Chris Wallace.
And let's talk about who defunded the police. When we were in Congress last year trying to pass a rescue plan, I'm sorry, not the rescue plan, but an emergency relief plan for cities that were cash-strapped and laying off police and firefighters, it was the Republicans who objected to it. And in fact, they didn't get funding until the American Rescue Plan, which our plan allowed state and local governments to replenish their police departments and do the other things that are needed.
This liar, this disgusting liar, is trying to tell you that because the Republicans didn't support the American Rescue Plan, they somehow defunded police. Here it is. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I read it. The American Rescue Plan was for COVID. It had nothing to do with police. This is on page 273. COVID. Look at under requirements. This must be used for COVID to replace the revenue lost at state and local governments due to the coronavirus. But they just keep saying it. They keep saying it. Here's Jen Psaki lying just as bad.
One of the advisors said this weekend, Cedric Richmond, he said, Republicans defunded the police by not supporting the American Rescue Plan. But how is it that that is an argument to be made when the president never mentioned needing money for police to stop a crime wave when he was selling the American Rescue Plan?
Well, the president did mention that the American Rescue Plan, the state and local funding, something that was supported by the president, a lot of Democrats who supported and voted for the bill, could help ensure local cops were kept on the beat in communities across the country. As you know, didn't receive a single Republican vote.
You see how she carefully chooses those words? That money could have been spent to hire more police. That money was for COVID.
The scope of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which takes up more than 600 printed pages, is unprecedented. In the coming weeks, tens of millions of Americans will receive $1,400 stimulus checks. Unemployment benefits will be expanded, and the cost of health insurance under Obamacare lowered. Analysts say the bill, which passed without a single Republican vote, will also dramatically cut poverty nationwide, funding programs for food aid and housing assistance, and offering tax credits for children.
Peter Doocy asked her again about this. Watch her have the nerve to say that Biden ran on a platform of boosting funding for law enforcement.
You mentioned at the last briefing that you think Republicans wanted to defund the police because they did not support the American Rescue Plan. Which Republican ever said that they did not like the American Rescue Plan because they wanted to defund the police?
Well, first, let me just note that the president ran and won the most votes of any candidate in history on a platform of boosting funding for law enforcement after Republicans spent decades trying to cut the cops program.
Biden ran on a platform of funding law enforcement? It astounds me how easily these Democrats lie. And they expect us to believe them. But anyway, she mentions the COPS program, Community-Oriented Policing Service Program. That was established in 1995 by Clinton, and she talks about how the Republicans tried to defund it. Yet, President Obama, in the last year of his first term, cut the program by 60%. In 2012, he allocated just $199 million for that program. That was the lowest since inception. But she talks about the Republicans trying to cut it. Let's watch the next press conference. She does it again.
And I will note that while the president ran on and won the most votes of any candidate in history on a platform of boosting funding for law enforcement after Republicans spent decades trying to cut the COPS program, which again is public record. We don't need to undervalue the intelligence of the American people. The president ran on increasing that funding. It's in his budget. In President Trump's budget, he significantly cut that. So that's a change.
President Trump significantly cut the COPS program. That's what she said, right? Here it is. This is the COPS program under Trump. He was elected in 2016. In 2017, it went up from 212 to 222 to 276 to 304 to 343. Trump didn't cut it. Neither did the Republicans. She's just lying again. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you shouldn't be. They're Democrats. But really, they don't think we're going to look this up. They are banking on people not going through the trouble to fact check them. We can't trust the media, so we have to do it ourselves. Trump did not cut that program at all. He did not reduce the budget. That is a flat-out lie again. But she kept saying it. She kept saying it. Even though Trump raised it every single year, she says that he cut it. He cut the program. Here she is at another press conference.
Well,
where is we're going to vote against this because we want to defund the police?
Again, I think actions speak louder than words, Peter. So if you oppose funding for the COPS program, something that was dramatically cut by the prior administration and many Republicans supported, and then you vote against a bill that has funding for the COPS program, we can let other people evaluate what that means.
They're going to keep saying it. You're going to hear it over and over and over again, and they won't be challenged because we have a dishonest media. There is no other profession that is filled with more dishonest and deceitful people than the world of politicians. None. And within that group, the Democrats are the worst. It's up to us to fact check this stuff, and I'm going to continue to do it. And we will continue to hear these bullshit stories about how Republicans are the ones who try to defund the police. But we know better.
So look, Republicans are very good at staying on talking points of who says defund the police, but the truth is they defunded the police. We funded